all three support areas. It's got to break three of them, guys, not one. It's got to break three of them, okay, to be wrong. Or he's going to exit with maximum gains. Put the odds in your favor and do your homework on support and resistance identification before taking your trades. All right? There's many types of technical analysis to be covered, and we wish to do so in a building block type order. We need to cover chart patterns, bottom formation, top formation, moving averages, moving average support on daily and intraday charts, three-dimensional charting through real time and different time frames, point and figure charting, a lot of these things that M. Assassin mentioned, before the class started. These areas are going to take many classes to cover in detail, and we all wish you the best in learning and sharpening your trading skills. All right, that's the end of this presentation for today, and I hope it's been helpful and informative to all of y'all. And I want to thank you in advance for for joining us before they start the question session.
Okay, we're ready for questions.
Hey, very good.
And again, this was a basics class. This was a straight up basics class, so I'm sure that a lot of people that already know this stuff. But I wanted to go ahead and make sure that when you do go through the basics, you go through them the right way, because a lot of people do the basics incorrectly.
Hey,
so continue.
Very good, guys. Thank you again for both of you putting this thing on. A lot of similarities in the way we trade. We had talked about that last night. No trees. But I did learn a few different things today. We're actually chatting in this in our chat room as you guys were talking there, and we actually picked up a few things. So people were saying I was telling them why it's important to review this stuff over and over again, even though you might know it or in a different way, because we go a lot of the same stuff in some of those Saturday webinars. We may call things a different the candle by a different name, but the same type of principles apply. So again, great webinar. So I'll start with the first question. There was some confusion at one point, Assassin, when you said about to ignore the wicks. I think you were saying, I understood exactly what you say. So some of you guys understand Assassin is dyslexic, and sometimes he might say things a little bit different. Most of us that know him understand what he's saying. You had said ignore the wicks, but I think you were saying ignore the resistance and worry more about that candle setup in the wick to see if it's a shooting star setup. If I'm correct.
Yeah, I'll clarify that for him, since I know exactly where we can find an answer to that. Perfect. Real quick. What he is basically
we both understand the no trees.
Yeah, I got you. I understand him because I talk to him every day.
Yeah, same thing here.
Yeah. Okay, what he's saying is ignore this wick right here, because this is your shakeout. What's more important is that this candle closes above support. Okay, so this is all this in the circle is market noise. Okay, now if this candle would have closed here, what he's telling you is that's what's important, is because if that body closed down here, then that's a support break, and it closed down there, that's when we need to exit, because now we have a break of support, not just a wick below support. And that's what he meant. He's saying focus where the body of the candle closes above support. Okay?
Exactly. I understood that.
And one more thing that I was also meaning is often when creating support and resistance, it's good to ignore the wicks as far as support and resistance, because you get a better chart with if you wait for the actual candle to close, because that way you're able to go ahead and get a stronger understanding of where the real support is versus where the wick tells you that the support is. On support, resistance, even trend lines, you often have to know which. You can't ignore the wick, obviously, because it tells a part of the story, but you have to know which wicks to ignore. Because wicks can also confirm a trend line, but usually they're not as good to go ahead and be the beginning of a trend line, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we.
And often and too often I see traders shoot. Yeah, I think that too often traders tend to use the wicks for their trend lines, and that I believe is a mistake. If they're not taking into consideration that the body supersedes it.
Yeah, and the close is really the more important thing. You can see the setups. One question that goes hand in hand with that is Fareed has a question. Those shakeout candles, and see they're called shakeout candles, but you might have heard them as a different name in the Saturday webinars, and you're correct, Fareed. That's called a hammer candle as well. So a hammer candle,
yes, of course,
and the shooting star that you talked about is just the opposite candle. It's just after a big move. If it's a big move down, you're looking for that hammer candle. If it's a big move up, you're looking for the shooting star candle. And those give you that change in direction. Okay. The good thing about those, the good thing about those, and why I like this HMA example, that's why I love this type of stuff. I always constantly try to learn from this. While you guys were actually going through this chart, no trees, we're actually analyzing it as well, because I've played a lot of $10 breakout stocks. And because that wick is so long, guys, on that candle, the other key thing that to watch for, and that I'd be watching, is the $10 key level, because you broke above it and then you come back down. So as you can see, the times that you actually came down to it, you actually held nicely over that $10. To me, that would have been another good signal as well, because $10 is such a key level. And because of the webinar today, we actually might start scanning for more $10 plays. I said, wow, I used to scan for $10 plays. How come I stopped that? And I've been doing my own different stuff now, but scanning for $10 breakouts, $5 breakouts is actually another good way to try and catch these type of patterns. Okay.
Yeah, especially on that retest, because you've seen today how many retests appear in all time frames. Why would you not scan for that and be looking for that retest and a confirmation of that support hold and then scaling in? Those can be very profitable. You're exactly right. And it doesn't have to go far below $10 to tell you you're wrong. So if you're buying at 10.10 and you're giving the shakeout down to, say, 9.70, your profit potential is huge on a play like that at that key level.
Exactly. And earlier today, guys, before the webinar even started, me and No Trees were actually looking at some charts, and we actually saw eye to eye on RIM. RIM had actually broken up over 28 today. But I love how he looks at stuff to scale in, and you saw they kept talking about scaling in. Scaling in is such an important part to trading, and regardless of the size of your bankroll. It's easier as you have a bigger account, but you should at least have at least 2 buys that you can make. And I go through this a lot, even in our chat room, about scaling into a position, scaling out. So at least you're just trying to get a move on a stock. It doesn't matter if you're catching right at the bottom or right in between there, as long as you're getting a nice range. And today, remember how we were talking about the RIM, and it was well below 28 when we were looking at it. But an important thing to try to understand about that scaling thing. The other question is from Rob. Hi, it seems some of the trend lines drawn, like the top one, is drawn to the wicks, or are you guys using Fibonacci retracements or just key levels?
This was all of the trend lines were drawn at just key levels of points that were made. They're not necessarily drawn to a wick or away from a wick, but a wick will often come down and test a trend line. So it can be part of forming that trend line if it lines up with another 2 areas that say closed at the base or the opening of a candle. So you can take the opening of a candle and then months later a wick, and then months later say the close of a red candle, and when those line up, you can form trend lines there. And you're not you're not looking for so much of you're looking for a trend line, but what you're really looking for more than that is if you can get that trend line in an area and then find a key level of support that the price action is pulling down to, and enter around where those intersect. It doesn't have to be to the penny. It just has to be scaled in around that area. So then you know if both of those levels are broken, you're on the wrong side of the trade. With a minimal move to the downside, you can exit quietly without hurting your account, but your upside is much greater. So it puts your risk reward at least to a, say 1 to 4, 1 to 5. Some of the risk rewards in this class were probably 1 to 8. I mean, literally. if you scaled improperly.
I would add to that. I would add to that question, trying to understand what it is that he meant. Kind of goes into that first statement that I made to ignore the wicks. You can't ignore the wicks, obviously, but the wicks are not as good for showing you support resistance than if you start drawing from the body, because the body can give you so much more.
Right.
You know, it can tell you so much more. Wicks will come back to it, often go above it, but the body. That's why I implore you guys, wait for the candle to close, and then by the close you already see, wow, there's a shakeout candle, or whatever you wish to call it. I've used to call it shakeout candle, so whatever, or a shooting star. You know, I call it reverse shakeout candle. Bottom line is, if you wait for it to close, then you know what to do, and then you know, okay, right close to the close, what to do, where to position. The wick is more to distract you than the body itself. The body, I would say, is more important than the wick in many ways.
Next question, which I'm sure other people might have, especially if you're listening to this to the tape version, and depending on when you listen to it, we might have had more of the webinars. The best way to keep updated on that is either check my Twitter account, twitter.com/StockGuy22, and I actually posted a message for you there, Matt, or twitter.com/MMAssassin. Okay, and you can either go to his site there, which is on his Twitter account, or our site on my account. We also have webinars right on our site, and we're actually updating them now, so there's going to be much more on there, and we're planning more into the summer, both with Assassin and some that I'm going to do on candlesticks, Fibonacci retracements and stuff, and scanning for actual stocks. The other way you can go is right to Assassin's Assassin's site, which is Traders Playground. So again, you'll see that there. He also has a YouTube channel, so if you just search on Google Assassin, make sure you use double S's, double M, okay, and you'll actually see his YouTube account, okay, and that's the other way where you can get him as well.
If this class seemed to be a little bit slow, it was because we wanted to go ahead and go through things that you need to learn, but also we wanted to make sure that somebody who's never done technical analysis before, like for instance, Travis used his wife and he was trying to show and she got lost. So we changed the class so that she wouldn't get lost. Brick by brick by brick, until we're doing wave theory, until we're doing PNA, until we're going through you know, how to go ahead and customize your different technical indicators to different time frames, how to do everything. You know, even how some of my friends have created their own formulas that you can go ahead and download into your Thinkorswim platform, into your Interactive Brokers platform, if you have NinjaTrader or whatnot, from the very beginning to the very, very, very advanced. And that might be 7 classes down, but every single class before it is a strong and important building clock to the class that comes afterwards. And me and Travis will make these probably maybe every couple of weeks, or maybe it's going to take a month per, because we're going to